So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a lens that every photographer should have in their bag without a doubt, and what I think is probably the go-to lens and focal length for just about any type of photography. And my trip that I just got back from really proved this to me. So stick around. So if you saw the last video, my wife and I made a video about photographers and marriage, and it was a lot of fun. But I was actually at a Jellystone in Tabor City, North Carolina, doing some work for them. I was doing some shooting for them, for their marketing and things like that. And something that struck me, and this happened the last time I was doing work for them in one of the upstate campgrounds they have, and just over the years, is that when push comes to shove and I need to make sure I'm going to get the shot, I go to one lens and one lens only. I'm not looking at my 50 millimeter or a 135 or my 70 to 200. When I'm out there and I have to capture an event or something dynamic where there's people moving and the situation is fluid and it's going to change and I don't know what's going to happen, I go to this lens right here. This is my 24 to 70. This is the one lens that I can rely on completely, and I can get just about any shot I'm looking for with this lens. Now this one I'm holding is a Tamron. This is a Canon 24 to 70. It's actually Eric's that I borrowed. This is the M version of a 24 to 70. It's a 15 to 45, but with the crop factor, it's basically equivalent to that. And this is my old Nikon 28 to 70, which is a workhorse lens that I loved and I used all of the time. So what's so great about this focal length? It does everything. When you're working and you have to deal with people and you don't know if you're going to be dealing with groups or a single person, or you're not really sure of the settings, it's not a studio environment, it just lets you have the most, the widest range of availability to you in a really good lens with a wide aperture if you want to get some shallow depth of field. So these are all 2.8 lenses except for this one. This is a kit lens, but it's the same focal length. One of the reasons why they include a 24 to 70 equivalent in just about every kit. So when you buy a crop sensor DSLR, or I'm not sure about mirrorless cameras what they come with, but if you go to your local Costco or BJ's and they have a Nikon and a Canon sitting there, they're both going to have 18 to 55s, which is basically a 24 to 70 equivalent. On the mirrorless camera, it's almost the same, also a 15 to 45. So it's the crop factor is a little different on the Canon than the Nikon, but basically they're trying to get you into that 24 to 70 millimeter range. Because, and I'm going to drop some images here, I was taking photographs of kids. Now, half the time they didn't want to listen to me, they were just doing their thing and I was trying to capture it. And then I had, big Yogi Bear there, and I had groups of kids and sometimes a family. Or maybe I was shooting a play structure, like in this image, that had no people in it, but I needed to get a little bit wider. I left this lens on the camera for the entire weekend. I used it. I brought all my lenses with me. I had a bag full of lenses. I had my 16 to 35. I had a 50 millimeter. I had a 35 millimeter. I had my 70 to 200. I had a 135 with me. I had my fisheye lens with me. And I only used the 24 to 70. And I got a lot of great images and I was totally comfortable with it. That's one of the things about, when you're working off a tripod or you're out there by yourself, you have time to fiddle around and, figure your gear out and, oh, try this lens and worked, or, yeah, I didn't like that, let me try this one. Oh, that's better. When I'm showing up to something and there's an event happening, and like this, we did they had an egg contest that I was there over Easter, and, the kids are out there running around, and I didn't have time to, choose what lens I wanted, and if it wasn't working, things were happening quickly. So I knew this lens was going to get the shots that I wanted. Once you become really comfortable with your gear and you know what you're going to get, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And now you can concentrate on making really good images. And that's what I was there to do. Not to, get fancy with a 1.4 millimeter, aperture and, or none of that. I was there to get images for someone that they specifically wanted. So I had to make sure I got those shots. So I imagine if you spoke to a wedding photographer or an event photographer or somebody who shoots proms or sweet 16s, I bet you a lot of them, this is the go-to lens. And if you are one of them, and put it in the comments, because I'd be curious to know what you use instead of this when you have to capture moments that are happening and you don't have time to pose people and make everything perfect. So I did a little experiment today. Now, if you watch this channel, you know Eric is a prime shooter. That's all he shoots. He shoots his, 24s, 17s, his 50 millimeter, his 35, his 85 millimeter. If you saw his last video, he was comparing the 85 millimeter on the two different cameras, his 135. So these are the lenses that are his go-to lenses he uses all the time. So I sent him a text today. I said, okay, you have an event to shoot. You have to go to a wedding. You're going to shoot a prom party. You have to, you have to shoot. You can only bring one lens with you, but it's going to be, some sort of event. What lens are you taking? 24 to 70. Now, this is someone who doesn't even use the 24 to 70, but in those situations, he knows that to get the shots that he may need to get, he needs a versatile lens, a workhorse lens. Now, when we shoot the Disney parks and we're trying to be more creative, I still use the 24 to 70, but not as much, because it's a kind of a natural focal length, and it gives you images that are standard looking. So we try to use different lenses, like longer lenses or fisheyes or specialized lenses or really shallow apertures. But a lot of times if you're working for a client or somebody, they're not interested in that. They want a shot. They want what they want. They want this shot looking this way. They're not interested in something fancy. We will get creative when we're shooting for ourselves or when we're doing our own Disney stuff. When we were shooting the books, we got a little crazy with the lenses. We used all sorts of different combinations of lenses. But for fireworks, I went to this because I knew what I was going to get, and I use this all of the time for fireworks. This is a lens that if you are moving out of your first set of gear, like you bought your DSLR and it came with a lens, and some of the better DSLRs actually come with a 24 to 70 or 24 to 105, but the 2.8 aperture instead of an f4 aperture is something you're going to want eventually. So you have that camera body, and now you got to go buy your first lens. You're going to drop a couple of bucks. This was $800. This one's $1,500. This lens, if you can find it used, you can still get $700-800 for. And this lens was built in 1993. So, they hold their value because they're so versatile. This is something that you might want to consider investing in. I will have this lens for a long, long time. And now they're starting to come out with the 24 to 70s where they're stabilized, and that's great. So if you have a mirrorless camera, you might have stabilization built into the body. The DSLRs don't yet. So it's on the actual lens. And there are times that I had to actually take a shot of Yogi Bear and inside of their little bear den, and it was dark. And I used the flash, but I didn't want to crank my ISO up. So what I had to do is I had to use a super slow shutter speed, but I didn't have time to set up a tripod. So I braced the camera as much as I could, and I went with a 20-second shutter speed, which typically is, you're taking a chance that the image is going to be blurry. But I took this image with it, and because it was stabilized, and I was able to hold it, very still, I was able to get a decent image in this situation. So I just thought it was fresh in my mind having just used it, and and here's another thing I noticed when I was on my cruise the last time. I took notice of it. A lot of the photographers, when you're walking around in Disney, see PhotoPass, or maybe you're on a cruise, there's photographers walking around taking pictures of people. They have little setups. They all have 24 to 70s on their cameras. And I took note of that because I actually saw this lens. A lot of them were using, on the Carnival ship, they were all using Tamron 24 to 70s on the cameras because, again, they're walking around, they're dealing with people, so it's a great lens to have for that situation. So I just thought I'd pop in with a quick video today just talking about that. So if you don't have a 24 to 70, get one. It's a lens you will have forever and you won't regret having it. The 50 millimeters and those other lenses, they're nice, they're less money, but this is a lens that can do just about anything you'll ever need to do with photography. As your photography grows, it'll grow right with you. Okay, so thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like the videos, thumbs up, please, and subscribe to the channel. Okay, see you in the next one.